This interview with Tom Brownfield is part of First Stories, a series of talks with treasured members of First Congregational Church, United Church of Christ. These interviews are a project of the Heritage Committee. I'm Nancy Gilson Braverman. Tom Brownfield has been a member and an exceptionally contributing member of First Congregational Church, United Church of Christ for more than 75 years. As he says, my father, C. William Brownfield, had been a Methodist minister, while my mother, Lillian Thomas Brownfield, came from a long line of Welsh Presbyterians. Becoming Congregationalist seemed like one of the few logical things to do. Tom was born and raised in Central Ohio, graduating from Grandview Heights High School and attending Ohio State University. He also completed coursework at Methodist Theological Seminary in Ohio. In the business world, he was Senior Vice President of Information Technology and Chief Technology Officer with the Ohio Company in Columbus. He has been Administrator for Chautauqua Association of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, still serving that organization as construction manager. His plethora of activities at First Church include serving as commissioned minister for social justice and representing the church with regional and local social justice organizations. He has been the church's moderator and treasurer, as well as serving on many committees. He has also served in leadership capacities with the Columbus Metropolitan Church Council, Central Southeast Ohio Association to the Ohio Conference United Church of Christ Board of Directors, the Hunger Network in Ohio, and Worldwide Humanitarian Aid Incorporated. Tom is married to Kathy Barnt, daughter of Reverend Bill Barnt, the first association minister of the UCC's Central Southeast Ohio Association, and a mentor to Tom. Kathy and Tom have 4 children and 10 grandchildren. Welcome, Tom, to this interview. You have been a longtime member of First Church. I think you were maybe 4 years old when you first came to First Church, and you are now a vigorous 82 years old. Can you describe what the church was like when you were little, or maybe some of your memories of the church from your childhood?
Well, sure. I think my earliest memories of First Church actually revolve around the time I spent with the head custodian, who was a fellow by the name of Edison Wood. And I would sneak off from Sunday school and go to help Edison get ready for coffee hour, which was a staff responsibility in those days.
So how old were you when you were doing this?
Oh, I was probably 6, 7 years old. I did it for quite a while. Edison Wood was one of my favorite people. And I remember clearly when I was about 7, the woman who was the Sunday school superintendent came to my father and said, Tommy is not participating in Sunday school as he should.
Whoops.
And Dad said, oh, really? And she said, yes. He doesn't come, or he comes and then slips out. And he goes to spend time with the custodian. Mm-hmm. And Dad said, and you see that to be a problem? And she said, yes, it is a very big problem. And I said, and Dad said, well, no, actually, I think what he's doing is getting a Christian education.
Aww.
The reality was that Edison was talking to me about things like redlining, talking about...
Edison was African American?
He was African American. He told me why, some people had been upset that they noticed his son was driving this big fancy Cadillac and lived in a kind of a shack on the east side of the city. And Edison explained to me why his son couldn't get a good mortgage for a house, so he might as well spend his money on something else.
This sounds like it was about the 1950s sometime. Yeah.
It would have been around 1950, 51, 52, that area.
Yeah.
So she just couldn't convince Dad that he had to discipline me for doing the wrong thing. And so that was one of my early memories of Sunday school, actually. And then later, when I taught fifth grade
Sunday school. Uh-huh.
There were several kids who wanted to know about some of these things. And so I got Edison to agree to come and talk to them.
Oh, good for you.
And he was really very powerful in the way he presented, very calmly but very forthrightly, the problem that this presented to his community. And here at First Congregational Church, of course, we were blessed with a membership that was primarily upper middle class and mostly white, and not very understanding among the children of what these people were going through.
Was he a member of the church?
No.
No, he wasn't. And did we have very many African American members? Probably not.
To my knowledge, we had 4 or 5.
Uh-huh.
Like Bill Willis was one,
Yeah.
and Amos White
Yeah.
and his wife were members, and there were a couple of other people who were involved at the time, but not very many.
Bill Willis was the very famous football player, one
Right.
of the first African Americans in the NFL, and passed away not too long ago,
Right.
actually. And then Amos, was he a journalist? Or
No,
he was a prominent member of the Columbus community.
He was an educator.
Educator, okay.
And actually, the first time I ran into him with any knowledge of it was when I worked for Columbus Public Schools as data processing manager. And he had demanded that the school system change its salary provisions for teachers and administrators to follow the state guidelines. And for that reason, he was fired.
Huh.
And he went into federal court and sued the city school system and won.
Okay, that's why we know him. Yeah.
And then came back, which actually what happened there is I got stuck with having to compute new salary schedules for the entire 4,300 teachers and administrators in 9 weeks before their first pay. And but he became a great friend. Kathy and I ran a Bible study on Wednesday evenings for about 10 years, and he was one of our staunch members who was a very, very wonderful contributor to the discussions.
That's so cool.
So, it was fascinating that you get to know people in different contexts.
Yeah.
And initially, I really only knew him in the educational context from my work at Columbus Public Schools. But then when I worked with him here at First Congregational Church, it became apparent to me that we were soulmates in some very serious ways.
So cool. Isn't that one of the incredible assets of this church is the members who have brilliance in many avenues, inside and outside of the church.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what's fascinating to me also, and it's something that I wish I knew how to fix, and that is you never know these people very well. I was surprised at his funeral to find out that Amos had been a world-renowned jazz horn player.
No kidding.
And had
A trumpet or?
no English horn.
English horn. Wow.
And he had been, apparently, from what this famous jazz player who came to the funeral said, that he was dithering over whether to sign a recording contract and decided not to because he wanted to further his education so that he could teach young children. And he thought that was much more important.
Wow.
So you think, how did I not know?
Not know that, yeah, wow. So what other kind of moments or events in your long time history with our church have stuck out with you?
Well, my time at Pilgrim Fellowship when I was a teenager was very important to me. The people that I knew and worked with, but most importantly, my hero at the time was Boynton Merrill. Mm-hmm. Dr. Merrill was so influential to me. And he had a program that I thought was very interesting and participated in. And he called it the Minister's Study. Mm-hmm. And it was for junior and senior high school members of Pilgrim Fellowship, that after the PF meetings, we would join him in his study on Sunday evenings, primarily, to discuss issues that were of importance to us.
Oh, that's great.
And ask questions, and of course he led the conversations in how do you behave in a Christian way in the face of certain difficulties that you face and things like that. And that was an amazing benefit to those of us who were able to participate. And I've thought of that many times and how important that was. Mm-hmm. And I remember one particular thing where I had one of those golden moments, as Marcus Borg calls it, those times when you seem to be detached. You seem to be kind of involved with the universe. And he calls it a golden moment because the light sort of changes, becomes golden to you. And I recall I was sitting in a pew in church during worship service, and Dr. Merrill was preaching on judge not, that ye be not judged. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, I felt this overwhelming joy. And I felt physically a weight lift off my shoulders with the recognition I don't have to be responsible for judging anyone else.
Hmm. And this is as a teenager?
I was 14 at the time.
14, interesting, yeah.
And that was the first time I had one of those experiences. I've had about 5, but that's the kind of an experience that is joyful, wonderful. You want it to come back and you can't get it back. You want to make it happen again and you can't.
Yeah.
But that was, but Patty Pfeiffer and I traded for 3 years the job of president of PF. Huh. And she went to California, became a very well-known educator in the California school system. Her younger brother, Rick, was a very critical, I might even say at certain points, crucial member of this church. He was a moderator. He was served in a lot of ways. He was a city attorney, and he was the first environmental judge in Franklin County. So this group of people was so interesting in how we structured our lives around the Pilgrim Fellowship. Huh. That was such an important piece of what we did.
And that was for teenagers, correct? Yep. Yeah.
There was a group. There was a PF for junior high kids, and there was a PF for senior high kids.
Nice.
And
sounds like something that would be nice to resurrect.
Yeah, if you could. And that's one of the things I think churches throughout the country are struggling with, is how do you bring kids into something where they're already overscheduled, they're already so committed to other activities that you barely have time to get them into church. How do you bring them in? How do you get them to build the cohesion that lets you decide that these are important activities that you want to build your life around?
And then add to that the idea that we're a downtown church and people are coming from all sorts of different neighborhoods to get here.
Yeah.
So it does seem like throughout the U.S. that church membership and participation is declining. Is this a problem for us here at First Church?
It is and it isn't. I think when I was preparing for my ministry role, one of my assignments from the committee was to do a survey of what churches are succeeding and which ones are failing in the UCC. And so I surveyed a whole bunch of churches and talked to a whole bunch of people about it. The churches that were being successful were churches that were justice-oriented and presented an authenticity in their worship and their roles in the community that was expressive of following Jesus, not following some hierarchical notion of salvation that put the individual above community, when in fact the entirety of the Jesus ministry was community. And I found that was very much the reality throughout the country, wherever I talked to people.
That those were the churches that were doing okay.
Yeah, and young people were demanding authenticity. They were saying, I read about this Jesus guy, and then you're doing something else. That doesn't make sense. And so I think one of the things that I've found here, and frankly, I found it when I was about 12 or 13 years old, when I decided I wanted to go to First Community Church.
In Arlington?
Yeah. Because we lived about 2 blocks away from there. All my friends went to there or Boulevard Presbyterian Church. And I said to Dad, I want to go there with my friends. And Dad said, well, you're pretty far from being 18. And I think when you're 18, you can make that decision. But right now, we're going to First Congregational because that's Gladden's church. That's where justice is done. Oh, I said. Ended the argument. But that was his sense of it.
Yeah.
I've been surprised how many people, when I've talked to them as they've joined the church, whether they were very musically oriented or other questions in their lives, end up here. And I said to one fellow who was a music teacher and a choir member and this, that, and the other thing, I said, I bet the music here at First Church was really important bringing you here. He said, no, but I love it. But he said, I wanted to raise the children where we do justice.
Oh, yeah, that's great. So when you turned 18, did you go to Upper Arlington's church?
No, I stayed here.
Okay. Because it was just those high school friends that were drawing you there for a while.
Well, and Dad knew better.
Yeah.
You know, he knew that when you're 12 or 13 years old, you want to go with your buddies. But as you learn what your life is really about, then you start being more selective, I think.
Yeah. So switching gears, from your bio, it looks like you've combined science, business, theology in your professional life. How's that work out for you?
Well, I see no conflict.
Uh-huh.
Frankly, I have to say I'm a progressive theologian.
Uh-huh.
I have never in my life perceived a God on a throne, meting out judgment, keeping a book, and all that kind of stuff. That makes no sense to me. I've been a panentheist my whole life.
Define that for me.
Well, a panentheist is one who believes that there is a God, and that God is in all things, and all things are in God. There's no separation. When someone says, do you feel that God is close to you? I don't understand that term, because I'm part of God, God's part of me. How can I, what do you mean by close?
Uh-huh.
How does that work? And so, and people say, well, do you feel loved by God? Well, yeah, in the same way that I love my left hand and my right hand.
Yeah.
Because if I'm part of it, and it's part of me, what do I mean by that?
Mm-hmm.
How do I anthropomorphize such a question?
Yeah.
When I'm asked about creation, someone says, "Well, do you think God was the creator?" I said, "Well, I don't know what that means. Inasmuch as I can't comprehend creation, I can't comprehend infinity.
Mm-hmm.
I suspect that maybe what I mean by God the creator, I may just mean the definer of the ultimate physics that caused all this."
Mm-hmm.
But I have to be willing to say I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm incapable of knowing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm an infinite, I'm in an infinite universe, and I'm a finite little being.
That's both kind of mind-blowing and reassuring at the same time, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and one person, one minister, where I was preaching at their church, they were having a problem with a justice issue, and he said, "Well, then, how do you figure that you can pray for justice?" And I said, "Well, I really do take seriously the dictum that prayer doesn't change God. It changes the prayer. It allows the prayer to become open to an infinite reality that we really can't understand. But I do know that when I've sometimes prayed about something that I didn't know what to do about or whatever, and I'd wake up the next morning and I'd have a sense that I understood it.
Huh. Yeah.
So the question isn't, what do you get from prayer? The question is, do you become more aware and more open to the infinite through your prayer? And I believe that I do.
Yeah. Do you, not to get too personal, but when you pray, do you get angry sometimes? Do you get
Yeah.
depressed? Do you get, all those emotions that kind of drive people to prayer?
Well, yeah, but I think the question, when I'm in a position of anger, or which I'm often in over injustice, when I see people being abused for some reason, grabbed in the night and shipped off to some far-off destination, that angers me. When I see people being deprived of health care, how can that not anger me? Mm-hmm. So, but when I approach prayer about that, I can't be saying, God, fix it.
Yeah, or it's your fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's, where can I go with this? What can I do with this anger? How can I help to build something better? That's what I'm after.
Yeah.
And that's what that openness and awareness can allow you to be receptive to.
Time for your imagination to kick in and
Yeah.
do
But
things.
one of the things I've always thought was fascinating is the greatest gift and most frightening one that we were given in our evolution was imagination. And
How have we used that?
we have the
Yeah.
capability of imagining something better. We also have the capability to imagine taking from someone else.
Right.
Which do we do?
Yeah.
And so that becomes the question that I try to resolve in a prayerful situation. How do I use this imagination that I've been given to come up with something better?
So, building on that, explain how you do that as our commissioned minister for social justice.
Well, it's a matter of trying to maintain relationships. And to me, I like the statement by Washington Gladden that in the end, Christianity is about friendship. Right? It's friendship with God, friendship with yourself, and friendship with your neighbor. That's the essence. One of the, I think it was Hillel who said that God's commandment to love God with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul, and to love your neighbor also as yourself is the whole of the Scripture. All the rest is commentary. Right? So if you take that seriously and say, well, okay, how then do we achieve this goal of community with relationship? You cannot, in my judgment, have blessed community. You cannot have valid relationship without that it should be just. If it's not just, it's not a fair relationship. If your community is not just, it's not in fair relationship with its members. So that's how I approach relationships with other churches, relationships with other people. I've spent considerable time with some things like the Columbus Coalition for the Homeless and
Representing our church.
yeah, and then with the Ohio Conference, I've done work on that council. It's all about trying to build and relate to other people.
Yeah, yeah. It's such the concept of social justice is so important for almost all of us at First Church. Why do you think this is, and has our church contributed to this area of service?
Well, I think it has. In 1850, when Congress passed the Fugitive Slave Act, and churches throughout the country were voting whether to comply with. And when you read the act, it is very specific that you must catch and report fugitive slaves. If you don't, you're subject to it's a felony with a $10,000 fine, and we're talking about 1850. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And up to 10 years in prison, something on that order. I can't remember the details for sure, but it's something like that. And the 42 people who were members of Second Presbyterian Church who voted no. We're not going to do that. We're leaving. We're going to make Third Presbyterian Church. And they did that. One of the things that absolutely astonishes me in today's climate is the fact that Second Presbyterian Church raised $1,000 for these members who were leaving to build their church.
Yeah.
I mean, how astonishing
That is
that?
astonishing.
And then later, they found that they couldn't be an abolitionist church if they remained Presbyterian.
So that's when
So they became
congregational.
congregational.
Yeah.
But that was the seed, I think. And then, of course, they acquired this crazy guy, Washington Gladden. And one of the things I've really enjoyed doing is when I've done my impersonations of Gladden.
Those are really good, by the way.
Well, one of the fun things was going through all his old sermons. And I never said anything that wasn't in one of them. My favorite one is the one he did on the 50th anniversary of his becoming a minister. In which it was just such an amazing sermon, talking about what had been done and what was left to do. And then going out to the Social Justice Park, when you see the work that he and Bishop Watterson did to fight the anti-Catholic, anti-Irish, anti-Black attitudes in Columbus. And when you hear the stories of the kids who are juniors and seniors at Watterson High School, talk about the still existing requirement because of that they take on a justice internship of some kind in their junior and senior year.
I did not know that. That's interesting.
That's still there.
Yeah,
That was constructed by Watterson and Gladden.
way back.
Way back when. Gladden Community House was constructed by him. And you look at these questions and say, well, has that had any impact? Well, when I was 18 and 19 and 20, I had a class at Gladden of young guys who were acting out and who were beginning to feel their hormonal disruptions, which were rather serious. I mean, when you have a 13-year-old who has a 12-year-old girlfriend who's pregnant, you know there's some serious stuff going on. But I was there because Gladden had been there, right?
Yeah.
Because I was part of First Church. We feel that shadow.
Yeah. We sure do. And over the years, we've retained that desire to do social justice.
Right.
Love humbly and walk with God. Yeah.
And we've taken seriously the notion of community. We've taken seriously the notion of relationship. That to me is a far greater gift that Gladden gave us than we could have expected anywhere.
Yeah. So we've retained that over the years, and now we're in a transition period with leadership at this church. How do you think we're handling that? And any predictions for what's going to happen going forward?
Well, I've served on several search committees. certainly I think it's being well handled, but you never know that. I think when you're looking at the question of what's going on and are we handling it correctly, we'll know someday.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been very pleased that in my initial talks with Jess, I've been really pleased that she's so committed to an inclusive and just.
This is Jess Young Chang, our new associate minister.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been really thrilled with the attitudes and, frankly, the sermons of Becky.
Reverend Becky David, yeah.
David, I think she's, and I remember delivering a sermon at St. John's UCC the Sunday after Christmas one year. And I wore, for the first and probably the last time, I wore a red hoodie when I was preaching. But that hoodie on the front said, "Keep Christ in Christmas." Mm-hmm. Feed the hungry, clothe the naked, etc. Mm-hmm. And that was the subject of my sermon. Interestingly to me, at the end of the service, we had the receiving line thing, and the first person who came through was rather a surly sort, who said, "Well, that wasn't very long." And I said, "Well, thank you." Not knowing how else to respond. And I was getting ready to greet the next couple, and there was a couple 3 or 4 down the way, and this young woman grabbed her partner and said, "Look, that's what he said."
On your shirt?
Yeah. And I said, "Well, thankfully, in that short time, somebody was listening."
He got the message.
So here's the thing. I think Reverend Becky puts things very plainly, mm-hmm. very concisely. She doesn't feel the need to spend a half hour, 45 minutes discussing all of it. And I think she does a very good job of putting out the principles that we're trying to inculcate among our congregation. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think we're doing well in that regard. Yeah. Yeah. I think with Josh Stafford holding forth in the music department, I've been very pleased with him. I know Tim Ahrens commented to me that when they were preparing for Josh's first Easter Sunday, Tim had long ago given up on one of his favorite hymns to start it. When Josh said, "I think we ought to start with the first hymn being, 'I came to the garden alone.'" And Tim says, "I about fell out of my chair." I'd been wanting that hymn for years, and none of our choir masters would let me do it.
Yeah.
And here's Josh saying, it's so important that we recognize Mary Magdalene's role here. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
So
that's great.
And I've loved Josh at Chautauqua.
Yeah. Were you there this summer?
I
Did you go this? I
no,
know you've gone a lot.
Kathy and I agreed to take 2 years off when I retired from being the chaplain administrator.
Right.
It just seemed like any other ministerial thing, you want to do that. But I did go up a couple. We went up for the week of the closing, and I went up once during the season just for. I had a meeting with the contractors and had to go up, but Josh was a real addition up there, and that's an amazing story. But
so, getting ready to wrap up, tell me what brings you joy when you're here at First Church.
The people. I really do just love the people. That's the biggest thing. But I'm an introvert.
No.
Oh yeah. And people have said to me, I can't imagine how you can preach. Well, unlike my father, who, my father wrote the JC Creed. Okay? So the JCs throughout the world always wanted him to come and speak. Well, he'd go do that. And when he was done, he was just pumped. He was up. I deliver a sermon and I need to go hide in the closet for a couple hours, kind of recover. But it's the relationships. But it's also here that I feel so powerfully the relationship of the Jesus of history with the history that we're now living. And where I can come and I can reflect on that, or I can sit in the pew and feel that need being answered by something beyond me, that need to understand, that need to pursue relationship, that need to pursue justice. It's beyond me. It's always beyond me. So how do I do that? And for a stutterer, which I am, I've always had to play with words. I've always had to have a repertoire of several that I can use if one's failing me. And I can usually tell if I'm about to stumble on a word. And I can usually find another one. Substitute. I can't do that with my name. And my name is one of the hardest things for me to ever say. So
Really?
Oh yeah, Thomas. And then BR. Oh my gosh. In growing up, I had some serious incidents with that.
Oh.
But the thing that was fascinating to me is my dad and Boynton Merrill never let me crawl into a hole and hide because of it. And in fact, when I was 12 and I'd had a horrible incident in school where a teacher, we were supposed to be saying our name and what we did over the summer, and I hung up on my name.
Oh.
And her response was, "You stand there until you get it right."
Oh my gosh. Of course she did. Yeah.
And I fled.
Yeah.
And ran home, and I ran away from home and went camping at my grandmother's orchard, knowing that nobody would know I was there. Of course, everybody did. But right after that, not right after that, but shortly after that, Dad and Dr. Merrill somehow talked me into delivering the children's sermon, which used to happen in the chapel. There was a separate children's service, and it was patterned after the service in the sanctuary. But They talked me into doing the sermon about Christmas in different countries.
Oh, nice.
And I finally agreed to do it, and I said, but Dad, I can't do that. I can't do that. And he said, because you stutter? Yeah, I can't do that. He said, when don't you stutter? I said, when I sing. So sing it.
Oh my gosh.
So my sermon consisted of 8 hymns, Christmas carols and hymns. But I wrote the connective material between that I could sing.
Nice.
So I could sing my introduction, then the first,
The carol.
and then
So did you save it? We should have you do that one of these Christmases.
I didn't, and I don't.
You can recreate it.
I did save I did save one other sermon I wrote when I was 13, the year after. I was able to speak it, but I had written a sermon about the birth of Jesus that I delivered in that.
Yeah.
And I had written it on my own, and then Dad and Dr. Merrill said, you've got to deliver this. Because it was all about the birth of Jesus is about the breaking forth of light into our world.
Yeah.
It's not about magic. It's not about virgins. It's not about any of those things. It's about the light broke forth.
Nice.
And that was my thing. And Dad said, you're getting it.
I think you did get it. I think you did get it.
But see, the thing, one of the things that was fascinating, he was in the coal business after, because the family had been, so he went back to that. And we'd go down to the coal mines, and then on the way back on a Sunday evening or whenever, there'd be us 3 boys and Mom in the car. My job was to stand up behind Dad, between the seats, and keep him awake. And so he and I would talk.
Yeah.
And we talked about science, and we talked about Paul Tillich's theology. Dad was in the process, when I was 9, of reading again or reading for the first time, I think, Tillich's big tome on theology. And so we talked about that. And we talked about Tillich's discussion on ethics as a Christian. And all those things that we talked about, over and over again.
You didn't just poke him in the chin to keep him awake.
No. And Dad was always surprised that I stayed with it. But he had gotten something I was interested in.
That's so interesting.
And it was fascinating. And it was fascinating to me years later when my committee on ministry was asking me to pick a scripture as the background to my ministry for social justice. And I was looking, like Micah, Amos, Isaiah, all these places where you could get all the justice ones. And I was thinking about it, and I was not happy with it. And I had another one of those golden moments. I was sitting at my desk, and I just grabbed a book. And it was Paul Tillich's The Shaking of the Foundations.
Oh, that's great.
And I opened it up, and it opened up, I believe it's chapter 23, which is a series of his sermons. And it was on It was based on the scripture, Romans 5:20, which is where Paul says, the law came in, so sin abounded. But grace abounded more through Christ Jesus. And Tillich's take on that is, you are accepted by God. That's a capital Y. It's not you.
Yeah.
It's you
All of us. Yeah.
are accepted by God. If that's true, how do I turn my back on anybody I see suffering injustice? If that person is as accepted by God as I am, how dare I?
Yeah.
So that became,
Your kernel for that.
that was my scripture that I selected.
Yeah, nice.
And it happened in a golden moment. Reading that, it all fell into place.
Oh,
That's the core of it. It's not all these things about, do justice, love mercy, walk humbly with God. Yes, that's how you do it. But this was, what do you do?
Yeah, this is why.
Now, what are we doing here? God loves you.
Well, Tom Brownfield, what a great and rich history you've had with First Church, and especially the whole area of social justice. We are so blessed to have you and to have your thoughts on this.
Well, you can never do enough.
Thank you so much for your time today, for this interview. It was
Well, you're
great.
so welcome.